I had Alex Newman on, and he was at the meeting in New York at the UN. And with the UN, it's the Pact for the Future, which is really the pact for tyranny for the future. So you don't have any rights. But he said, what they're looking for. He says, you can read this on the UN document. They want polycrises. They want multiple crises. They want the hurricanes. They want the financial problems. They want war. They want political problems. They want everything. They want crises so they can come in and fix it and say, hey, we can make it go away. All you have to do is sell us your soul. Just give us your soul. But do you think we're headed for a multi-crisis a problem right now? I mean, the Fed says, oh, the economy's great. We need to cut interest rates a half a point. Do you think we're headed for some big problems? Let's just start with the economy. That's one of the things you're really good at. You're good at a lot of things, but do you think we're headed for a major blow in the economy?
Well, yeah, the economy's been headed for some kind of a gigantic crisis for decades. You can find videos of me with black hair telling this same story, 15 years ago, because we've been headed that way. And we've kind of turned a corner just lately where we've entered a new phase, which is kind of the blow-off death spiral stage of this whole thing, where we had to raise interest rates to stop inflation. But then that spiked everybody's interest costs and brought on the potential for crises at government levels now, where, you can't cover the interest on your government debt anymore without further inflating away your currency. That's going to be a huge financial crisis, and it's in train right now. It could happen pretty much any time, or we could slip into it anytime. And then that takes us to the currency reset that's out there waiting to happen. Now, that kind of thing, currency crises are extremely messy, but you can get through them, and it doesn't even have to be super chaotic. You can just announce a new gold standard on a Sunday night, and then on Monday morning, you have a sustainable financial system and go forward. That could happen. But let that happen in concert with a shooting war with Russia, where missiles are taking out nuclear power plants and things like that, which would just collapse the stock market, right? And cause oil prices to spike. And combine that with some kind of a cyber attack, and combine that with some kind of a natural disaster, like two big hurricanes that hit Florida and cost $50 billion worth of damage, let all those things happen at the same time. And then maybe a constitutional crisis in politics where an election is clearly stolen and one side refuses to, accept the fact that they were cheated out of the presidency, and you start some kind of a civil war-ish thing, or a state just starts rounding up illegal immigrants and dropping them back over the Mexican border, and the federal government says, no, you can't do that, and you got the National Guard of one state versus the National Guard of another state in a shooting war. All of this stuff could happen, and it could all happen in various versions of simultaneity. It could happen sequentially or all at once, and you throw all that into the mix, and you get the kind of chaos where you really do need a dictatorship. And you just have to hope that the people in charge are the good kind. Let's say FDR, even though libertarians aren't crazy about FDR, and he did a lot of things that in retrospect probably, our kind of president wouldn't have done. But he was a steady hand, and he got through everything. And, at the end, we came out in reasonably good shape. That kind of dictatorship would save us, where you have to declare an emergency, and you basically have to just do what it takes for a while. But that's a rare thing in the world. It's an extremely rare thing in the world. So I wouldn't trust our guys, whoever we have right now, to come in, do what has to be done, clean things up in 2 years, and then go away. That's asking an awful lot out of today's political leaders. So we got to hope that doesn't happen. It could be that it's part of a plan right now, but it's not a guarantee sequence of crises that are coming that we can't avoid. There's still a chance to avoid some of this stuff, and you have to hope. And I know a lot of the audience is going to say, "Oh my God, he's so naive," and I could be, that it could be that so much of this is baked in the cake that there is no fix. But I choose to believe that chaos is definitely coming, but we get through it. So a decade from now, we're a recognizable version of America. And that's not guaranteed. It might not even be likely at this point, but I think it's completely possible. And I think that's the fight that we are in now for the next 5 years or 10 years or whatever. We got some version of a civil war coming. It might just be political, it might be metaphorical, and might be kinetic, and we don't know. But we have to choose sides. We have to choose the right side, and then we have to make the case in a way that in the end sways enough people so we win. Not easy at this point, because we've allowed ourselves to go so far down the wrong path that chaos is definitely coming, but I hope it's a survival kind of chaos, and I'm not sure that it will be.
Israel drops, a big daisy cutter on Iran's nuclear facility.
There you go.
What happens?
That could be the thing that's possible, that China and Russia feel like they really have to step in on the side of Iran because this has just gone too far, et cetera, et cetera. And then you get something much bigger. And that's the thing you risk. When financial markets would respond to that, oil would go to $150 a barrel. That would crash the stock market. And then you get all the other dominoes falling, commercial real estate, residential real estate, government bonds, derivatives, everything starts blowing up. So that could be the catalyst for a financial crisis that's by far bigger than anything we lived through, much worse than 2008, 2009, which was the worst thing that we've seen since the Great Depression. So yeah, we're not far from something like that, because you got, I think it was Trump said something like he thinks Israel should bomb Iran's nuclear facilities. And stop me if I'm wrong. And
no, you're right. You said that.
I think I saw that. Yeah,
you said it.
And so you've got Biden, who's a figurehead, a demented figurehead for the neocons who want World War III because they think they can win it. And you've got Trump saying things really recklessly, stuff that we really don't want to happen. There is no good outcome for Israel bombing Iran's nuclear plants. And so we've got to squeak in this really tight little space in the middle where we get through this without some crazy thing like that happening, because on either side are these wide spaces where all kinds of things could happen, and we're kind of, we're tending towards one of those or another, and it's terrifying. So, yeah, great. We need to find something optimistic to say here, because this has gone really dark, hasn't it?
Well, this is just what's happening. Gold at 2,600 took a hit the day we're doing this Tuesday, because I want to air this Tuesday. But gold took a pretty big chunk down, and they said, Hezbollah wants to have a peace talks, or not peace talks, I'm sorry, a ceasefire. I don't know if the Israelis are going to do that. They didn't bring them to this point where they can let them regroup and start attacking them all over again. But what's up with gold? I mean, gold is, Martin Armstrong says they're doing it because they're afraid America will default on its debt when we start a big war. But gold is at 2,600, and what Goldman is saying it's going to go to 3,000 or 3,500. Other Goldman Sachs, other projections are much higher. Let's just close with something positive, because a lot of people that see this and read this watch gold. What's going on with gold?
Yeah, because the important thing to understand about all the crazy stuff we've been talking about so far is that it's basically an investment thesis. There are things that go up in that kind of a world, and it's possible to set up a strategy. Okay. That's a weird thing to have happen, where I just literally couldn't pronounce a common word.
You got
strategy. It. Yeah. All right. Anyhow. Where you set yourself up so that you are poised to at least be protected, you and your family, from what's coming, or alternatively, where you make a ton of money from what's coming because it creates so many opportunities. And gold is at the centerpiece of that kind of process, because that's the kind of money that people have used as money for 3,000 years. It's always held its value through invasions and natural disasters and financial crises. Gold has always been valuable. The people who owned it have always been well off. So you start with something like that. You buy gold and silver, because silver is part of the whole precious metals complex and tends to do well when gold does well. You start by buying gold and silver as the bedrock part of your financial life. And then from there, you branch out into other kinds of real assets that governments can't make more out of on an electronic printing press. And that's energy assets, that's really well chosen things like rental houses. Some parts of real estate will do very well in what's coming, and other parts won't. So you need to be very wise about what kind of rental properties you buy. Uranium is going to be probably a very hot place to be. It's going to be something that goes up going forward. Copper, as we electrify the world, there's going to be a huge shortage, and it becomes more valuable. And so there are ETFs you can buy. In other words, mutual funds that trade like stocks that benefit from all of these things. And so you start, after you've got your physical precious metals, you start branching out into the kinds of financial assets that at least represent physical assets. And with your own life, you start adding skills to make you more resilient. If you can do a little bit of electrical work, stuff like that, learn how to do drywall, learn how to grow your own food in your backyard, learn how to work on cars. There are all kinds of things you can do to make yourself a more useful person to be around, and someone who's more likely to come through a time of disruption in good shape. So, there are lots of things. It goes on, but there are lots of things pointing in the direction of resilience that you can start doing right now. And that's, my Substack is based on that. It's a newsletter that looks for actionable advice along those lines. And there's an awful lot you can do, and as long as you're thinking, all right, if I do this, I'll make a lot of money, or if I do this, I'll be able to help my family, it keeps you in a good mental space. If the world is going crazy, but you are doing things that are going to pay off and allow you to help your friends and family, then you've got a more positive attitude about what's happening, and you can compartmentalize, whereas a lot of people just can't. They're watching the news right now and thinking, they might not be thinking anything. They're just curling up in a ball and whimpering because the world seems so crazy. But you want to get past that. You want to have a positive attitude about the steps you're taking to make your life better. And, it's possible that this stuff pays off in a big way. Big crises in the past have victimized the vast majority of people and made a handful of people who saw those crises coming super rich. So we should be striving to be among that handful of people who makes the right decisions and comes out of this in great shape, and that's not only obviously good advice, but it's a good attitude to have,
Don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps out the channel. And if you want to stay updated with more content like this, be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon so you never miss a video.